What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I wanted to have a discussion about tiny map 24/7 playlists and their potential negative impact on the overall multiplayer experience in COD. So the playlists I'm talking about are like Shipment 24/7 or Nuketown 24/7 in Treyarch games. Basically those super small chaotic maps that don't really represent the overall gameplay experience of that particular Call of Duty game, but they're basically just used as meat grinders for camo challenges and ranking up guns quickly. This is something I've been thinking about quite a bit lately, and in my opinion, having these playlists permanent, like 100% of the time, 365 days of the year, I feel is actually quite harmful to a Call of Duty game. Now, before you jump on me in the comment section below, please just hear me out throughout this video, hear what I've got to say, and then feel free to jump down my throat. But yesterday, I did make a poll on Twitter because I did feel this would be a very unpopular opinion, because I do know that these playlists are quite popular and quite populated. So I did want to sort of gauge the reaction of my community on Twitter, which, by the way, if you guys aren't following me on Twitter, I will leave a link to that down below. But with this, I basically just asked the level of agreement that players had with the statement that COD should stop with permanent Shipment/Nuketown 24/7 style playlists and instead bring them in as limited time modes on a regular basis. And these are the results of the poll, keeping in mind at the time of recording this video, there's still a little bit of time left on this poll, but it's been up for long enough that I doubt this is going to be changing much. And I was actually quite surprised to see that this is a fairly polarizing issue. While the biggest portion of players did click strongly disagree, which I totally expected with this opinion, that's why I thought it was unpopular, I was actually very surprised to see just how balanced the general distribution was here. If we were to group these together with the side that agrees, whether strongly or just regular agree, versus the other side, people that disagree or strongly disagree, it's pretty close to 50-50 there. Now, one thing that I probably should have also mentioned in this, but obviously Twitter has a character limit. While I do feel that these style of playlists shouldn't be permanent options, and I'll go through my reasons in just a little bit, this does come with the stipulation that if they were to remove these as permanent options, I think they would need to rework some of the progression in the game, mainly our weapon leveling as well as our camo challenges. And the simple reason for that is it seems like as the years have been going on, the weapon level grinds have been getting longer and longer and longer, and same thing with our camo challenges, and it's gotten to the point where if you wanted to be able to grind these efficiently, you kind of have to play these tiny map 24/7 playlists in order to get that done. And that's something that I also disagree with. I feel the progression in multiplayer should be focused around the standard multiplayer experience, playing on a wide variety of maps with a wide variety of modes. And then, if they were to bring these tiny map 24/7 playlists in as limited time modes but on a regular basis, they would be more so a bonus to give you a little bit of a boost on the grind rather than a crutch and something you rely on in order to do the grind efficiently. And this is where I want to dive a little bit more into my reasoning behind wanting to get rid of these modes. The first reason is I straight up feel that having these available 24/7, 365, it does cheapen the grind for anybody that plays the proper full multiplayer experience. Players that play more than just one or two maps for the entire life cycle of the game. There is a really big difference between somebody that gets the atomic camo in Vanguard, for instance, while playing with the normal quick play filters, so with whatever maps end up coming up, versus somebody that literally only ever plays Shipment or Ship House 24/7. And that can be a little bit discouraging if you are one of those players that likes variety and likes to experience the full multiplayer game and not just the same 1 to 2 maps for months on end. And I feel this issue actually leads into the next issue, which is people that want to be completing their grinds, whether that be maxing out the levels on their weapons or completing the camo challenges for their weapons. There's a massive incentive to be playing these tiny map 24/7 playlists all the time, because if you're not playing on those, then you're not doing things efficiently, and therefore while you're playing with the normal multiplayer experience, it feels like something is missing. Almost like you're procrastinating or wasting your time because you're not being as efficient as possible while working toward a goal. And this, I feel, really promotes an unhealthy mindset toward the game, because at that point, now the game really becomes like 100% about the grind and not the multiplayer experience and having a good time playing the game. In older Call of Duty games, the grind was a secondary thing to the player experience. It was there to enhance the player experience by essentially giving you something extra to do on top of just playing the game and having a good time. Whereas now, at least for many people, I feel the grind has completely taken over the actual enjoyment of the game itself. Many people, especially the ones that are just constantly grinding these tiny map 24/7 playlists, no longer necessarily play the game because they really enjoy playing the game and they're having a great time playing it. Instead, they're playing the game because they have a compulsive need to complete the grind. And don't get me wrong, there will always be at least some level of that for many players out there. For many players, the grind is always what's going to be motivating them to play the game. But the difference is when you don't have these permanent tiny map 24/7 playlists, this really opens things up and encourages people to branch out and play the full multiplayer experience, not just one or two maps, because they would no longer have that fear of missing out or that fear of not being as efficient as possible on their grind, because they wouldn't at least always have the option to go into these Shipment 24/7 style playlists. I feel this would actually take a lot of pressure off of many of those players. Again, assuming the grind is altered so that it can be done very reasonably on all of the maps and not just these tiny maps. And in my opinion, at least, this would shift the balance back in the direction of player experience rather than that compulsive need to be as efficient as possible while grinding through their guns and their camos. And also, just as a reminder, I'm not saying these 24/7 playlists should never be there. I think they should come in as limited time modes on a regular basis. So maybe like one weekend a month or something along those lines. Maybe more of a long weekend, so started on a Thursday and then ended on a Monday, for instance, 1 week every month. And that would make these playlists very special. And those playlists would still be available during these times to give you a nice boost toward your grind, just like with double XP weekends. And this is something we used to see in older Call of Duty games. I distinctly remember back to Black Ops 2. We didn't have Nuketown 24/7 365, but every once in a while we did get that Nuketown 24/7 playlist, and that was exciting. A lot of people would sort of rally around that. They would adjust their schedules so that they could play more on those weekends and during those times, because it offered a great boost to your general grinding experience. If there were some tough guns that you've been sort of putting off that you wanted to just rank up quickly, that was the weekend to do it. Or if you had a bunch of really pesky close range camo challenges, again, that's the time to do it. Whereas the rest of the time when those playlists aren't available, that's where you get to just play and enjoy the experience like everyone else. You get the full experience as well, and you don't feel as though you're missing out if you're not going to this one playlist with 1 to 2 maps in it. As for another problem that I feel these 24/7 365 playlists cause, I feel like this can really skew the perception of the game for many players. For those players that do feel that compulsive need to play these 1 to 2 maps constantly all the time, otherwise they're missing out. For many of those players, they have a very skewed perception of the multiplayer experience in the game because they're not really playing the full multiplayer experience. In fact, they're playing an experience that isn't representative of the full experience by any means at all. They're playing tiny, chaotic maps where people are spawning on top of each other, and there's no real big picture thinking or map control or any of that to worry about. You're basically just playing a meat grinder that's nothing like the multiplayer experience of the game. This can also lead to much faster burnout with the game, I feel. If you're just grinding those same maps over and over again, for many people, that's just going to burn you out really quickly, which is also unhealthy to the multiplayer ecosystem. Now, on one of those notes I just touched on, there is an area where I do feel a bit conflicted, and this is what I just mentioned. The small map 24/7 playlists, they don't accurately represent the general multiplayer experience of that game. Sometimes, like in the case of Modern Warfare 2019, that's a good thing for a lot of players. For many players out there, the reason they play these tiny map 24/7 playlists isn't necessarily so they can grind things faster. It's more so they don't like the pacing and the flow of the regular multiplayer experience, and this is the only thing that gives them that fast-paced action that they're looking for. I do remember very clearly back in the life cycle of Modern Warfare 2019, anytime Shipment 24/7 or Shoot House 24/7 or whatever combination of those was removed from the playlists, there was basically mass outrage in the community. I remember Reddit just being filled with people flaming the devs, or Twitter as well, people just like screaming that they want those maps back because they refused to play the game otherwise, because the rest of the game didn't offer that fast-paced Call of Duty experience that players were looking for. and many of the design decisions that they made in that game, whether that's map design or general gameplay design, like footstep audio for instance, for many Call of Duty players out there, they hated that. So these small map playlists gave them a place to play where they didn't have to worry about a lot of the same issues that were plaguing the regular multiplayer. So in that case, it was clearly beneficial to have these as 24/7 playlists because there was a massive portion of the community that straight up wouldn't play the rest of the game otherwise. They wouldn't play it unless these playlists were active. But that right there, if we're thinking more so like long-term, big picture for the franchise, that doesn't necessarily mean that having these playlists 24/7, 365 is healthy. I think that's more so just a sign that something is wrong with the approach they took to their standard multiplayer experience. If people don't want to play that and they would much rather be playing this other mode, even when they're not grinding for camos, then that's clearly a problem with how they're approaching their gameplay design philosophy outside of those playlists. And it sort of forced the devs to use those small map playlists as a crutch to keep player retention high enough, just like how many players are using these playlists as a crutch to complete the grind. And that brings us to the last big issue that I wanted to bring up in this video that I feel we run into when we have these playlists permanently available. And that is, if you're going to have a very large portion of your player base just constantly playing these playlists 100% of the time and they don't want to play anything else, whether that's due to the fact that the regular multiplayer sucks and they only want to play these small maps, or due to the fact that they just feel that constant pressure to be playing on these maps for maximum efficiency, where's the incentive for the devs to make an amazing multiplayer experience that's well supported when so much of your player base is just going to be playing on 2 maps anyway that don't play like any of the other maps and therefore don't really have the same issues that need to be looked at and don't need to be supported in the same way as the rest of the experience? Instead of recognizing that maybe weapon leveling is too slow and the camo challenges are a bit too much for anybody that's not playing on these tiny playlists, instead of recognizing that and making the appropriate changes to improve the player experience, now the devs can just rely on these small maps as a crutch and they can say, hey, don't like the progression, go play Shoot House. Or if you don't like that the standard multiplayer experience is far too slow and quote-unquote tactical for your liking as a Call of Duty player, then instead of making those adjustments to the regular multiplayer experience to provide something that more Call of Duty players are interested in, they can just tell you to go play Shoot the Ship 24/7. I feel like these playlists, since they have started becoming more and more permanent, have taken a lot of the pressure away from the developers to fix a lot of the issues that are present in the rest of the multiplayer experience, but aren't really seen as a problem in these small map playlists, because so many people are just playing the small map playlists. And with that, I feel like this is a good place to leave this video, and that pretty much sums up at least the primary issues that I feel result from having these playlists as permanent fixtures in the game. I honestly feel that the overall multiplayer experience could benefit greatly from not having these as permanent fixtures, as long as they are also making the appropriate changes to make the multiplayer experience great on its own without having to rely on these small maps as crutches to essentially let them ignore various issues with the game because players can just go to these tiny maps if they want to avoid that. Now, of course, all of this is just my opinion and stuff that I've been thinking about for quite some time. I want to hear from you guys in the comment section below. What do you think about having these tiny map 24/7 365 playlists? Do you think this is healthy for the overall multiplayer experience and the multiplayer ecosystem for Call of Duty? Or do you think this is potentially harmful, and would you rather see them removed as permanent fixtures to the game, while also making improvements to the standard multiplayer experience so you don't have to rely on these as crutches for your progression, or to avoid terrible gameplay design decisions in regular multiplayer? Just let me know all of those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.